We must all know by now that we have to keep our mobile phones switched off. Thank you.
I think we have come to a point in our search which is still only preliminary and introductory. That there is in the Veda not a body of prayers and some kind of processes of rituals, but there is a kind of a science which is based upon a great deal of experimentation, but this experiment is fundamentally in the field of psychology. There is here you find in the Veda a great effort to uplift our psychological powers. And what later on came to be called Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, we find in the Veda all the three systems of yoga and many others, like Mantra Yoga and others, very well developed. It may seem to be a surprise for the historians who believe that historical development is a linear process. But here is before us a text which gives you profound processes of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga and others. It gives accurate processes by which the powers of will, the powers of feeling and the powers of cognition, how these powers can be developed and brought to higher levels and the highest levels. It speaks of the consummation of the processes of psychological development. And evidently words like Medha, Mati, Sankalpa and others are prominently found scattered here and there. So even without any attempt at psychological interpretation of the Veda, at least these words are there. And when you read further, and then as we are now trying to get the key of certain words and how they have psychological meanings, then these processes become much more pronounced and known. We do not have the time to go into all the processes of yoga which have been described in the Veda. It is to be done by personal study, or if there is a long session where we can go into depths of all this. But since this is only a preliminary series, let me summarize the entire process of yoga as we find in the Veda. The process of yoga is an attempt to realize something that is beyond body, life and mind. In fact, the special characteristic of yoga, any yoga, not only Vedic yoga, but yoga actually attempts to go beyond body, life and mind. This is the differentia of yoga. When you use the word spirituality, and yoga is the real science of spirituality, what is the differentiating mark? The differentiating mark is that there is an attempt to go beyond body, life and mind. Now actually religion also tries to do that, to go beyond body, life and mind. Philosophy also tries to go beyond body, life and mind. But the instrument and the degree to which it tries to do it, it is that which has to be seen more closely. In philosophy, there is an attempt to go beyond mind, beyond the reason, but by the method of reason. Even when it takes into account spiritual experience, as some philosophies do. In fact, all the philosophies of India, excepting Charvaka, all these philosophies take into account spiritual experience. But they are all being critically examined by reason. This critical examination of reason of any experience is the hallmark of philosophy. It does not go beyond it. That's a limitation of philosophy. And those who believe that philosophy is the highest and there is no other means at all, they declare that if something is not critically analyzable and examination cannot be examined by the reason, then all that falls outside and it can never happen. They even declare that spiritual experiences are impossible. There is, for example, Bradley's philosophy in the West. I consider Bradley's philosophy to be the culmination of an attempt of the reason to go to the highest limits. And that philosophy does maintain that the reality is other than thought. It does maintain that reality is other than thought, it is beyond thought. But it says that reason can never reach it. And if reason can reach it, reason has to commit suicide. And reason cannot commit suicide. That is the point. Reason has to commit suicide if it has to come to that other than the thought. And therefore, it declares that the so-called mystic experiences are impossible. That is his conclusion. Now, there are some other philosophies which maintain that it is possible to go beyond reason and to experience something beyond reason. But they declare, therefore, that philosophy has to be transcended. Philosophy as philosophy, it cannot experience. You have to give some other instrument other than reason to experience that reality. This is the position of almost all Indian philosophical systems. That philosophy takes you up to a certain point, it points you to something, it raises some problems cannot be answered, or can be answered adequately or inadequately, but that which is beyond it has to be experienced not by reason. Some other means have to be employed. Religion maintains that philosophy is one of the means to reach up to a certain point. Sometimes it is even an obstruction, and therefore throw away philosophy altogether. There are many religions which believe that philosophy is a useless exercise and it has no meaning, and we should not cultivate so much of philosophy. As an amusement, you can discuss on a teacup and listen to many views which are being advocated by different philosophers. But as far as the object of religion is concerned, philosophy is an obstruction. Or when philosophy is allowed by religion, it gives some kind of antechamber to it in the main hall of religious practices and maintains that the object of religion is to be believed in. This is the speciality of religion. Religion, the special criterion of religion is that religion is basically a matter of belief. Now that belief may be dogmatic entirely, that is to say, a belief which you are not allowed to question at all, and you are told it is unquestionable, you can never reach it at all, you should not even think of questioning. In some religions, even questioning is called a sin. Even the tendency to question is sinful. So that is why many religions end in a dogmatic assumption of a certain doctrine. Or it is said that even if you question, be satisfied that these questions cannot be answered. And what is being proposed has to be accepted as a revelation, as something that has come suddenly by God's grace one day, and it is to be now practiced, and nothing more can be done about it. Thirdly, it emphasizes a great deal of rituals and ceremonies and prescriptions. These three things: rituals, ceremonies, and prescriptions. It prescribes certain modes of conduct. It prescribes certain systems of institutions. It prescribes that the decisions of the church are binding upon all the people. Any problem exists, if any problem is taken up and a solution is to be found, it goes to the church. And church is a hierarchy. And ultimately the top person, the Pope or whatever it may be, he pronounces a decision, and that decision is binding upon all the people, all the adherents. And that is the view of the religion.